Here we go. Jake and Josh are here to analyze the game they love for the team they love. This is another Dolphins podcast. Here's your host, Jake Mendel and Josh Houtz.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of another Dolphins podcast. We are here to recap Week 13, and Joshua Houtz, may I dare ask you, my friend, would you like to celebrate a third straight Victory Monday?
Always, man. Inject that stuff into my veins. I mean, this is what we're here for, right? I can't believe that we're sitting here talking about 9-3. We were talking about before we came on, first time since 2001. So been 2 decades. You were probably still like a little Rugrat, Tommy Pickle style, climbing up on your friends using that screwdriver you had in your diaper to get out of. I'm going way downhill. You know what I'm saying, man. It's been it's been a long time, man. And we're finally feeling pretty good right now. 9-3. First in the AFC as of now, as we're doing this. I mean, we may as well say it now because I don't know if it'll last after that Jags game. But, dude, like you have at the bottom of the screen, man, Victory Monday, and it feels so nice.
What a unique scenario the Miami Dolphins are in. 9-3. They are atop the entire conference. That first seed, Josh, you mentioned it, at least for now, is in the hands of the Miami Dolphins, the Fins of the Miami Dolphins. And with that, though, this conversation, it's going to get jinxed, and I'm going to go ahead and jinx it right away. That if the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Cincinnati Bengals, led by Josh, who's the quarterback of the Bengals? Can I put you on the spot for that one?
Is it Jake Browning? Is that who it is? I
absolutely nailed it. If
just
the
shaking my head,
Bengals can go into Jacksonville with Jake Browning and defeat the Jaguars, then the Dolphins will maintain that number 1 seed. And what an unusual evening, Josh, because did you watch any of the Sunday Night Football game? I know that we're all here about to talk about the Dolphins, but the Dolphins are in first place because there was some brutal officiating there in that the Chiefs game that really unraveled everything, let the Packers escape for a victory. If it sounds like I'm complaining, check your ears because I'm definitely not.
No, yeah, I mean, if it happened to us, it has happened to us, right? We hate it. It sucks, game. But it's
like, hey, going on the road into prime time. It's hard to do. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I spent a lot of money to go to that Eagles game, and they got jobbed out of that one. So, I mean, I see these other teams complaining. I'm just sitting there kind of like, it's your turn now. But, yeah, they definitely had some very questionable calls there late, and it did lead to the Chiefs losing to Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. And that was something that, like you said, helped the Dolphins out. We're now first in the AFC. How long we'll stay up top there, we'll see what happens. But, man, it feels good to be a Dolphins fan right now.
It feels really good to have Tyreek Hill on your football team, I should say. He became the first Miami Dolphins wide receiver with 2 60-plus yard touchdowns since Paul Warfield in the 1970s. That is actually, I'm just going to cut that. I don't know. I didn't double check that stat, so I'm just going to start over. It is a great thing to have Tyreek Hill on your football team. Miami's leading wide receiver went ballistic against the Commanders. 5 receptions on 7 targets, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, highlighted by 60-yard touchdowns, 78-yard touchdowns. Josh, there are some scenarios where it's like a Barry Bonds hitting a baseball. It's some things you just know what's about to happen. You hear the Jaws music, you know you're about to get eaten by a shark. If you see Tyreek Hill running behind a defense, man, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Tua's going to find him, and it's going to be a long touchdown pass. I cannot believe how open he was against the Washington defense that apparently never knew how good Tyreek Hill was at being fast.
Yeah, and on that first touchdown, I mean, they were kind of beat. They were beat at 2 spots, right? I think Devon Achane was lined up on the right side at the top. He was lined up with a linebacker. The safety was kind of cheating over that way, and that left Tyreek Hill wide open on that little, fade out of the slot, which we talked about in the last podcast about how the Dolphins were starting to do that more. How Tua, when he sees that one-on-one opportunity, he's not scared to take it. So, yeah, man, they came out first drive of the game. They unloaded. It was 78-yarder, I think, that first one. Tua to Tyreek, and I mean, like you said, as soon as you see Tyreek get past that defender, you know it's coming. But as soon as you see Tua Tagovailoa, cock that arm back and see him getting ready to unload, a big play is about to happen. And I mean, his first few seasons, we might have been sitting there holding our breath, but now it's just like, this is sick. Like, we know something good's about to happen because he just turned that corner, him and Tyreek, as a duo that just cannot be stopped right now.
Was it Cleveland, Jakeem Grant? Was it the Cleveland Browns that game? At Hard Rock where Tua launched a deep ball and it just kind of bopped off his hands. Was it Cincy, Cleveland? It was one of the two, I thought. Someone in the AFC North.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about. Everyone always used to bring that up when people would discredit Tua's deep ball ability, but now they have all these other highlights they can use.
I thought this game was so crazy because we hear the announcers, Josh, time and time again saying, oh, they're using this umbrella coverage. They're letting all the receivers run underneath, and they're making sure they don't let anyone get behind you. How was Tyreek Hill able to get so wide open when there's this defense using umbrella coverage? And keep in mind, you have Jack Del Rio, who was fired last week by the Commandos. You have Ron Rivera coaching for his job of a 4-8 football team, a team that has given up over 100 points in the matter of 3 weeks. How are you letting Tyreek Hill get that open? Is it something as simple as it's Washington's defense just kind of saying like, oh, whoa, this guy's a lot faster than we thought? Or does it continue to be this Mike McDaniel system combined with Tua knowing exactly where to put the football and simply put Tyreek Hill knowing exactly where to go get the football?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. And I mean, I don't want to sound so amateurish, but correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't their defense coordinator, did he just get promoted? He's like 29 years old or something, like the youngest in the league, I believe I read prior to this game. So, I mean, you have a guy that's going out there. He's super young, just his first matchups against Mike McDaniel's offense. I mean, you'd be crapping bricks, wouldn't you? But I mean, a lot of it has to do with the schematics, right? You can see the way the Dolphins utilize the motion and things like that to get the matchups that they want, to get to a Tagovailoa, to see Tyreek Hill in those one-on-one coverages. We've seen Waddle in those situations too. So I think it's a little bit of the Dolphins just having those chess pieces that you honestly cannot be stopped. And then it probably has a lot to do with just that dismal Washington Commanders defense, like we talked about. But we wanted this offense to have that get-right game, and this felt like that get-right game.
It really was, man. And we were asking for it from the Jets last week. We just wanted that clean performance. We don't care if, well, for me at least, I don't want to speak for you. I wouldn't care if it was like a 23-3 victory. I just didn't want to see any turnovers. I wanted to see a clean performance from Tua. None of the silly throws. We saw absolute precision from Tua, this Miami Dolphins offense in general. I mean, you can just go down the list. I mean, receivers, Tyreek caught 5 of 7 targets, 157 yards. Jalen Waddle was actually targeted more than Tyreek Hill. He caught 5 of his 8 targets. And there was one play. Last thing I want to do is hate when you win 45-15. But Josh, there was one play. Jalen Waddle was wide open over the middle of the field. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because this is a team that leads the league in points per game. And you want to hit your stride. It's post-Thanksgiving, Josh. We talked about it. The Miami Dolphins are officially 2-0 in the regular season. The season doesn't start till Thanksgiving ends. What is your thoughts when you see that this is a team that's still at times settling for field goals? They're still leaving points on the table when they can be still putting up 45 points, scoring in every single quarter, double digits in 2 of 4 of them.
My first thing is, my God, how far did we come, right? I mean, we used to sit here and pray for days like this. I mean, 45-15 win over the Commanders, and we're sitting here nitpicking it was a critical drop, right? And I think what was so disappointing about it was Tua Tagovailoa, eluded pressure, rolled out, found, a wide open Jalen Waddle. And I know a lot of people were saying he might have hit pay dirt on that. I don't know. I don't have another angle of that play, but I mean, that was one that you want to see your superstar playmaker like a Jalen Waddle make. So I guess the biggest thing is we can sit here and say the Dolphins still haven't. Can we say they still haven't peaked? I mean, we see them put together these great games. We see Tua Tagovailoa went 18 of 24, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns. The 2 were to Tyreek Hill, like we talked about. But I do feel like they still leave something out there, and can still hit another gear. Which again, I guess we saw against the Denver Broncos. But again, man, I just can't believe how far we come that we're sitting here talking about how Jalen Waddle's drop. It sucked, but let's be honest, man, it didn't do anything to this game because the Dolphins just had that big of a lead, and times are changing.
And don't get me wrong here. This was a very impressive performance. The Miami Dolphins improved to 4-3 on the road. They're above 500 on top of the fact they're undefeated at home. And then Raheem Mostert, 11 carries, 43 yards and a touchdown. And back in the lineup, Devon Achane, 17 carries for 73 yards, 2 touchdowns. And on top of that, he took over Jeff Wilson's role as a receiver, 4 targets, 3 receptions for 30 yards. Josh, ignore your fantasy team. How nice outside of that was it to see Devon Achane back on the field and have such a massive impact for this offense?
Yeah, we'll see. The good news is when you're in so many fantasy leagues, you do have those Devon Achane, but I still ended up losing. So I think I got balanced out of the playoffs despite his awesome performance. But we were talking about it in the previous pod, the preview pod, about them eating a pizza. And let's be honest, man, I think Devon Achane got all of Jeff Wilson's pizza, maybe even a little bit of the pepperonis off of Raheem Mostert. So I don't know how much they'll, use this this 1-2 punch, so to speak, because we didn't see any of Jeff Wilson. Did you mention the five? I think he was on the field for like 5 snaps. I wish I had that in front of me, but I mean, they did
4
not utilize him
carries,
at all. But
11 yards.
to see Devon Achane come back, you had some questions about his durability. I know I did. Can he hold up? He went out there and late in that game, he grinded things down. So I love to see it. Did have him going in one fantasy league, and it does seem like the Dolphins have that superstar running back. I wish I had it in front of me, but you see everybody posting the stat like in 4 games he has 600 plus scrimmage yards. And okay, hopefully you have it. That'd be wonderful.
I don't have that, but I can hit you with he had 3.2 yards after contact. On top of that, I'll tell you he forced 3 missed tackles. On 17 rushing attempts, he was stuffed once. Josh, I got to ask you, man, this dude's 5'10". Yes, he ran for over 1,000 yards in the SEC, but I mean, one week we're talking about how he's getting injured right away, like he's played 4 snaps, and then the next week, one play, some dude's bouncing off him. The next play, he's stiff-arming another guy into the turf, making him eat grass. Is Devon Achane injury prone and small, or this 5'10" bowling ball from another dimension? Because we can't seem to figure it out. Don't say both.
I think we did.
Not allowed.
Well, no, I think he's this guy from another dimension. I was gonna say pre-draft. I think we compared him to an Abra or Cadaver or an Alakazam or something where he could teleport around the field with that, crazy speed. So I think he's more that player, but I mean, we have to be worried when you're that size that, when you're running that hard between the tackles, that injuries are going to come up. I looked it up. CK Parrott tweeted out, Achane has been on the field for 137 plays this season. On those plays, Miami gained an average of 9 yards per first play. What the heck? This isn't the one I was looking at. Okay. He directly, let me do that again. I'm sorry. That was not what I wanted. Let me quickly bring this up. It was from Chris Kaufman, 11:35. Ready, go. Chris Kaufman, he had rookie running back Devon Achane has been on the field for 137 plays. He directly accounts for 635 yards and 9 touchdowns on 70 touches this season. So it's just incredible what he's done with so many limited touches. I mean, we talked about in our previous pod, you've talked about before, man. Do you start Devon Achane in, fantasy? I think you do. You have to, because when he touches the football, good things happen.
It will absolutely rip your hair out, though, when you look at Devon Achane splits and how the Miami Dolphins offense is using him. I think 11 of his 20 touches came in the fourth quarter, and they were all garbage time touches. So you don't know, you can't say for sure if he would have been that guy out there in a close game. You assume so because he looked absolutely awesome. And Josh, this might really indicate the age difference between us. When you were in school, specifically elementary school, did you guys make Flat Stanley? Was Flat Stanley a thing for you guys?
I'm not sure what Flat Stanley is.
It was like
I should probably know. I don't.
It was a book, and it was just this dude who was like flat, and we would make pen pals out of it. And I should have looked this up a lot more. But this dude, Devon Achane, the way he can break through these holes, he is literally Flat Stanley. This dude is like paper thin, just because there were so many times you'd see him bouncing the ball outside, and it looked like he'd get off the bus just like a stop too early. And you're like, well, you're running into 2 guys there, and all of a sudden he'd pop right between them, man. It was so impressive because Devon Achane is someone who really challenges your eyes. He does things that you're really stuck wondering, like, what are you doing, man? Why are you running in this direction? All of a sudden it works. And as someone who's sitting there watching on TV with this eagle eye view, I can't imagine being someone trying to tackle this dude, trying to figure out where he's going to go.
Yeah, I think we joked before, and I know I tweeted out, this is Barry. I'm going to tell my kids this is Barry Sanders. And I mean, he does have some of that wiggle and that explosiveness. I mean, there's never going to be another Barry Sanders, but I'm fine with saying that he's Devon Achane is the next Barry Sanders or Chris Johnson. Like we heard so many people, trying to make that correlation there. I actually pulled it up. He is third right now for most rushing touchdowns by a Miami Dolphins rookie in team history with 7. To get past Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Ron Davenport, he would need 5 more touchdowns on the ground, and then his 9 total touchdowns is also third, where he would need 4 total touchdowns then to surpass Ron Davenport. So Devon Achane, man, he's getting ready to make history, and I think he will get an opportunity down the stretch. We got 5 games left in the season. He seems like he's healthy, man. he was out there absolutely looking like a workhorse. But let's be honest, man, Raheem Mostert, right? He's what, 3 away now from Ricky Williams. He would snap Ricky Williams' Miami Dolphins record. I mean, Raheem Mostert,
He's
man,
getting it
the
right.
career he's having right now. Yeah, he's the belle of the ball, I guess you'd say.
Very well said, my friend. The Dolphins had 9 drives for 45 points. That right there just speaks to how consistent, effective this offense was. And you had Mike White playing the majority of the fourth quarter. That just kind of hints at how awesome Devon Achane has been playing. Tyreek Hill is in need of 519 receiving yards in 5 weeks in order to break 2,000 receiving yards on the year. Josh, I don't want to ask you if he's going to reach the 2,000 in the 5 weeks, because I think we can all see him. I mean, he just put up 150 in basically a half. I think we could all see him reaching there. The question I want to pose to you is, Tyreek Hill is one of the more socially aware people we know. I mean, he's calling out Liam Eichenberg, calling him Nancy Pelosi still on Twitter, which is the greatest thing ever. He has heard, there's no doubt in my mind, when he thinks about how Kelvin Johnson's receiving record happened in 16 games. That 17th game was just recently added. Tyreek Hill needing 519 yards. 3 of Miami's next 4 games, I mean, 4 of the next 5, the math's not too hard. Next games are at home. Do you think Hill does everything he can, McDaniel does everything he can to beat this, not in 5 games, but 4, and able to say he did it in 16 to match it up there with Kelvin Johnson?
You don't even know if you have to scheme him up, though, with the way they're going, right? I mean, Hill's getting his every single game. Tua's finding a way to get him. So I do like how you brought that up, because every time I hear him say that he's going to hit 2,000, he's going to break Calvin Johnson's record, the first thing I come up with, the homer I am, I mean, I still come up and think, okay, well, we did add another game, and we have to make sure we bring that up. But I think we're both in agreement that he is going to snap that record absolutely. Would love to see him do it in the next 3 games. And I mean, with the way he's playing, you can't sit here and say it's out of the realm of possibility, because he's playing out of his mind. NFL and CBS tweeted this out today. Tyreek Hill has 1,481 yards. Every Cardinals, that's more than every Cardinals wide receiver, every Patriots wide receiver, every Giants wide receiver, every Jets wide receiver, and every Falcons wide receiver this season. So Tyreek Hill's pretty good.
The Dolphins average 3.6 yards per carry on the ground. Something I thought was really interesting, man, and they might have done it a couple times last week in the 34-13 win over the Jets, but was it just me, or did it seem like Tua was doing a lot of fakes where he was going to toss the ball behind him where nobody was even on that side of the field? I mean, I could be overreacting a little bit, but it seemed like there were not even like 3, like 5, 6, 7 times where he was ready to like pop it back behind him and there was nobody on that side of the field. Like, it was obviously he was faking it and not confused, but that was something that I don't think we've seen it too much this year. Am I making things up?
No, I mean, I wasn't paying. I did not see that. I admittedly fell asleep late in the game. That was when Mike White was in. I fell asleep with the baby on me, a sick baby on me. But
oh no, this
yeah,
was
that would
Tua.
definitely be
like in his play action, like when Tua would be going back to drop a pass, he'd like fake to toss it behind him to a side of the field there was no running back.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe.
Okay, fair.
Never saw that before.
What else do I got here? Joshua, the Dolphins didn't allow a single sack for. They're really putting things together here. You had Robert Hunt back in the lineup. He actually left the game, re-aggravated his hamstring injury. The hope, at least my hope, is that he isn't out too long. But I have to ask you, we have someone like Louis Riddick coming out and saying the Miami Dolphins have this mean, physical, nasty offensive line. And then you have Dan Orlovsky coming out and saying that Tua deserves MVP because he's doing everything behind an awful offensive line. So I want to ask you, my friend, does the Miami Dolphins offensive line, is it actually good?
I think it is. I mean, I think what we've seen is good. I mean, I know Tua Tagovailoa makes up for some of that, right, with his quick trigger, how quick they get the ball out, some of the route concepts and things like that. I mean, that's why the Dolphins offense, sometimes when the routes get thrown off, right, everything goes to crap because it is that rhythm offense, and they are so quick to get the ball out. But I think the offensive line has taken a massive step. Put whatever you want into Pro Football Focus, but I think they had Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg only giving up maybe, 1 pressure this entire game combined or something like that. If that, I mean, those guys are playing great. So, again, credit to Butch Barry. And I do think it's a little bit of both, but definitely I think that offensive line's playing well. So, Dan Orlovsky, you're right that Tua Tagovailoa deserves to be MVP, but saying he's playing behind an offensive line, that would have been the previous years. Then you could have said that for sure.
I think that the Dolphins are doing a really good job of making us have the debate because we saw some PFF stats where they'd rank offensive lines in total, and the Dolphins were like a top 10 unit, Josh. So would you say they're like a top 10 offensive line? And I'll even give you the benefit of them at full strength. We'll say Isaiah Wynn when he was playing at his best. Would you consider that like a top 10 unit?
Yeah, if everybody's healthy for sure. But I mean, I think, I think it's more likely that they're not going to all be healthy at one point, right? I mean, it's kind of based on what we saw, but I'd say they're top 10 when everybody's healthy, Armstead healthy. But they're probably right outside of that, all Homer aside, right? 12 maybe.
Even if you wanted to debate, like, all right, I think they'd be a top 10 unit when healthy, but they're maintaining the success. And I think a big part why is because I got to praise Stephen Ross again. He got it right with his coaching staff, man. Mike McDaniel, Frank Smith, Butch Barry, all three of them deserve credit for this because the Dolphins are going to be in contract hell moving forward. They can't sign a bunch of offensive linemen. The only major free agent on that offensive line that they brought in on a big tag is Tron Armstead. They absolutely nailed the Connor Williams and switching him to center. But man, I think this offensive line, if you put another coaching staff in there, I think you're looking at what Sam Howell dealt with for most of yesterday. I think Butch Barry, I think Mike McDaniel deserves so much credit for making this offensive line just kind of float. And that's really all you need. You have Tyreek Hill, you have Jalen Waddle. You have invested so much into this offense where there are going to be different situations where you need to cut corners. I think I'd actually lean a little more with Olofsky and say that the offensive line isn't great, maybe like 15 to 20-ish, but just the way McDaniel operates, the way he thinks, the way Tua thinks has been able to kind of push them into being a top 10 unit because you have Tyreek Hill lifting all the ships. You have Mike McDaniel lifting all the ships. And that's not something we've had in Miami where you had Joe Philbin using his expertise to improve, I don't know, cleanliness.
Yeah. It's sorry. My wife's texting me telling me my kids have a fever. Sorry. Let me think about what I wanted to say. I had something good.
Do you want to pause? Do you want to?
I mean, they're at the doctor. There's nothing really I can do. I just saw that jump up and I was like, shit. But I had something nice I wanted to say. You were talking about the offensive line, and you basically said you agree with Dan Orlovsky. Okay, I know what I was going to say. Yeah, Jake, and you wonder how much, and I'm kind of joking here, but how much is it that a lot of these guys are in a contract year, right? We're seeing Austin Jackson play out of his mind right now, contract year. I saw a clip of him going around where the lineman yesterday tried to do a stunt to him, and he just pushed a guy aside and then got right onto another guy, and that's just not the Austin Jackson we were comfortable with or saw the first few years of his career, but it's just awesome to see him now. But again, contract year, Connor Williams, contract year, Robert Hunt, contract year, Isaiah Wynn, I think they only signed him for 1 year, so that's a contract year, right? So I think we can sit here and say that Orlovsky's probably right because we've seen so much transition on the offensive line, so many different rotations. I think the guy that does the stats for the Miami Dolphins came out today and said it might have been 8 different units we've used now this season or something like that. Keon Smith was out there, and again, he played solid. So I don't know. I think if you're looking at just the names, you'd probably sit here and say the Dolphins' offensive line isn't great. But I think those of us who have watched the games and have seen their growth over these last few years, have seen how good the offense is, can say that it might be a little bit of that. So I don't know, man. Flip a coin.
Let's take a little break here. And on the other side, we'll talk about a defense. Andrew Van Ginkel got a pick 6. Can't wait to talk about it. Josh, I know we're not math guys here on another Dolphins podcast, but I got a simple mental math question here for you that I'd like to get your thoughts on. And that's 91 plus 43. Does that equal, or is it like close to 15? Because it kind of felt like it on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, we already put Jaelan Phillips in the Ring of Honor, so I don't know that we'll say anybody can replace him. But if anybody can come pretty close, I think it's the combination of Emmanuel Ogbah and Andrew Van Ginkel. I mean, Andrew Van Ginkel has been playing out of his mind. I think earlier in the year we talked about it when Jaelan Phillips was out. We kind of even said, we don't really need Jaelan Phillips right now because of how good Andrew Van Ginkel looked. And, we saw it in this game with him getting more snaps. He did get, 46 snaps in this one, 5 tackles, 2 quarterback hits. He had that interception, which he read that play, man. He's watching the film and he saw that thing. He sniffed that thing out. Ogbah only played 16 snaps, but he still had that sack. And I feel like every time Ogbah's out there, he's kind of getting a sack. So do those two numbers add up? I mean, if we're sitting here and saying mathematically speaking, absolutely not. But when you're looking at the players on the field, I can see where this combination can do enough to get us by and to be the kind of player that Jaelan Phillips was. I mean, Ogbah sets the edge, right? He's good against the run and can get to quarterback. And then Andrew Van Ginkel, we're seeing him pulling off Charles Harris type spin moves out there, man. I mean, it's a beautiful sight to see.
We are recording this on December 4th, 4:43 p.m. And Joshua Houts, I just got a tweet that it just lit up my face, and I would love to get your thoughts. However, the reason it lit off my face, it is not good news that caused it. Jerome Baker suffered a brutal, what it looked like knee injury on Sunday. Against Washington, it looked like Brandon Jones kind of fell into him as they were trying to stop Curtis Samuel. I think it was going into the end zone. Jerome Baker tweeted out that he will not be gone as long as you expect. But Joshua Hout's instant reaction, Adam Schefter is reporting that former 49ers first-round pick Reuben Foster is working out for the Miami Dolphins. It goes back to all the wide receivers. We now get the linebackers that you've been craving. How does it feel?
I'm in shock. I'm sitting here. The first thing I'm thinking of is how I got to go find that George Bush meme where they're like whispering in his ear and be like, the Dolphins got Reuben Foster. I mean, I feel like he can be that guy that can come in and, be a difference maker in the run game. Don't know how much he has left in the tank, but Mike McDaniel spent some time with him there in San Francisco. We've all been clamoring for him. I know I was at that draft sitting there after every pick, just hoping and praying and waiting for him to fall to the Dolphins. And then the Dolphins said, we'll take Charles Harris instead, which, I guess you can sit there and flip a coin with that. But so they're working him out, or did they sign? They're just working him out currently, right?
Working him out. That'll happen on Wednesday. Will be the workout.
I was a little mad Shaq Leonard signed with the Eagles. I was like, that would have been the perfect, but we have no cap money, and we're sitting here talking about how we need to pay everybody, so that would have never happened. But dude, thank you. Every time we're on here, something good happens. At least the Tyreek Hill thing. I'll never forget that. I'll be on my deathbed just remembering Jake's face and how excited we were.
Schefter added that Miami linebacker Jerome Baker suffered an MCL injury Sunday and is now considered week to week at this point. David Long led the Dolphins. He had 1 tackle for a loss, 8 total tackles, a quarterback hit. Duke Riley came in relief of Jerome Baker. When he left the game, he had 8 tackles. I think he knocked down a pass. No, excuse me. He forced a fumble, I believe it was, that was recovered by Washington. But man, what has it been like these last couple weeks? I mean, the Dolphins have suffered a handful of injuries. Javon Holland didn't play. Hence, Brandon Jones was in the lineup. Jerome Baker left the lineup. We all are still trying to figure out how it sucks how much this team has lost with Jaelan Phillips. Like we still don't know how much that's going to limit this team's ceiling, losing someone that great. It seems like we're not ready to figure that out. I mean, you have guys week after week, Duke Riley. I mean, Andrew Van Ginkel we're talking about. Emmanuel Ogbah, sack and 2 quarterback hits. There's a bunch of guys stepping up, ready to make an impact on this defense.
Yeah, Duke Riley looked awesome, right? I mean, I think before I said that he was kind of more of a special teams guy. I mean, I don't think he's ever really truly got that opportunity to shine, but I saw him, making some plays, and I pointed to my wife who liked the Eagles. I'm like, there's your boy Duke Riley out there making plays. It seemed like he was waiting on his moment. Obviously, wasn't waiting for what happened with Jerome Baker to, take place. I mean, you got to feel for Jerome Baker. He's playing some of his best football. Brandon Jones hustling just to make a play. And it was just an unfortunate incident, but yeah, man, Duke Riley really stepped up and impressed me late in those games. I think even Channing Tindall got out there a little bit, may have had a tackle. Need to make sure I go out there, and if it's even just 1 tackle, Jake, I got to make sure I tweet that thing out if it's the only clip I show this week. But I think what you were getting at there is it's just nice to have a team where, these aren't some big name players that you're asking to come in and play, but it's the next man up mentality, and they're coming out there and they're doing their job. And it just feels like a different, you hate to be corny, but different culture, right? Like it's a family mentality, and no matter what happens, they're going to step up and, take control of it for their brothers. Like we saw with Ogbah, pointing at his, doing the 1-5 for Jaelan Phillips. I mean, this team loves each other. So I'm intrigued to see what Duke Riley can do, but definitely need to bring some more depth in there as well.
Terry McLaurin targeted 3 times. He didn't have a single reception. That's called the Jalen Ramsey effect. Jahan Dotson, 2 receptions on 5 targets. That's called the Xavier Howard effect. Zach Sealer, a sack and a half. Bradley Chubb had half a sack. What we're seeing, man, is that there is just this solidified group of, and I don't even want to discredit the other guys coming in, but you see guys who are so effectively and consistently doing their job where you can have these guys come in and just have their ability to lean on them to punch people in the face. I mean, the fact you can have Andrew Van Ginkel out there button mashing is such an awesome thing for this defense because he is one of the smarter defenders that you'll find. Vic Fangio didn't want him back just so they could discuss hairstyles. Vic Fangio knew what he could do, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. Did you see any massive impact because we see JPP as someone who's going to get into the mix slowly and surely over time. We hear Vic Fangio kind of preaching that they're going to take it real slow with someone like JPP, and they're going to focus on using him in the nickel. One of the concerns with Jaelan Phillips going out was, hey, can you be as flexible with Andrew Van Ginkel? After one game, after not the greatest Washington opponent, but I kind of want to say yes, you can still use him as that linebacker in the nickel and then also as that pass rusher off the edge.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I don't want to say we're not seeing the Dolphins defense take a step back without Jaelan Phillips out there, but Andrew Van Ginkel rose to the occasion. We saw, again, Emmanuel Ogbah do the same thing. So I think, like you said, after one game, we can sit here and say that Andrew Van Ginkel can continue to do what he's done early in the season. And again, you got to give credit to Vic Fangio for, like you said, bringing him back, making sure he comes back. But we're sitting here talking about Cap Hell on the horizon, and now you got Andrew Van Ginkel proving that he, is capable of being a starter. I mean, he's a guy that literally is changing games for the Miami Dolphins. So don't envy Chris Grier one bit. I mean, you already said we'll let you go and, try to go to another team. And now he's going to want more money, right?
The last stat I have here, Pro Football Focus, since week 9, the Dolphins defense allows 4 yards per play, which is best in the league. That started with the Kansas City game. Joshua, I mean, we see this defense really starting to take over. We saw a unit that in years past, I go back to, there was that game against Andrew Luck, I think it was 2013, where Deion Jordan could have had his coming out party. And there was a play he could have sacked Andrew Luck and he just pushed him. And because he didn't realize how big of a quarterback he was and he was just going to knock him over. I mean, we see Zach Sealer, trying to knock Sam Howell to the ground. We see these guys actually trying to obliterate opposing teams. I mean, what have you seen as this defense where it sounds crazy to say, and I keep repeating it because it sounds crazy. You have an offense that put up 45 points. They put up 70 earlier this year. And this defense has taken every opportunity to steal the spotlight, and I think they're doing a pretty good damn job of it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm glad you brought up Zach Sealer because I had to make sure we gave him his flowers because it just seemed like on every play, he's relentless. And, you ask what it has to do with, right? For him, it has to be him wrestling alligators and things like that. I mean, this guy literally plays football like a man that wrestles alligators. I mean, he was all over the field. You can see why the Dolphins locked him up. I mean, everyone is doing their thing and playing their role, and you just have to love how it's all starting to come together. Bradley Chubb had a half sack in this game. Zach Sealer had 1.5. Emmanuel Ogbah had that sack. And they held Sam Howell to the lowest passing yards. He was coming into this. He was leading the league. I think he had 120 passing yards in total. We didn't get all the sacks we wanted. I think we wanted like 6 or 7 or 8, but the Dolphins defense, man, I was going to ask you if you had to sit here and say which unit's better, the offense or the defense. I mean, when you're looking at the star power, I mean, my eyes immediately go to offense, right? Because you have that fantasy mentality, but dude, this defense looks freaking elite right now. And we didn't even mention Kader Kohu. Got to shout out Brandon Jones. I mean, yes, Jerome Baker got hurt, but I think he played every snap in Javon Holland's absence. And again, the Commanders didn't play great, but Terry McLaurin was a ghost. If you started him in fantasy like some nerd named Josh Houts, you might have regretted that one.
Overall, an excellent performance from the Miami Dolphins. They went to Washington and nothing caught them off guard. I mean, this is a defensive front in Washington that didn't have a sack last week. The same was true this week. We saw from, I think, the opening drive where Tua wanted to get the ball out of his hand quick. And then he realized there was nobody around him, which I thought was pretty funny, where you saw him throughout the game realize, oh, I have more time in the pocket. I can really let plays develop. And it took him 3 plays to realize I can just launch one to Tyreek, and they're not going to be ready for this, for him to go up and catch that football. I mean, Josh, we kind of hit the nail on the head here a little bit, not necessarily in the, hey, we're geniuses, Washington sucks and Miami is good. But you look at, Washington allowing 16 touchdowns from outside of the red zone. The Dolphins, both of their passing touchdowns, Tyreek Hill, 60 yards, 72 yards. This is a team that is very vulnerable when you're able to stretch out the field. All of Miami's other touchdowns that came from within the red zone, both the Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert's rushing touchdowns. Something to keep in mind if you'd like to place a couple bets on this team. The Washington defense, man, they are prone to giving up the big plays. And then on the other side, right, we kind of see Sam Howell as someone who's going to button mash the controller. It's that little kid playing Madden who's just going to throw it time and time again. But this Dolphins defense has allowed 3 touchdowns from outside the red zone. And we continue to see that stout secondary be that calling card that this defense needs, even when Javon Holland isn't there. Before we wrap up, Josh, I wanted to take a minute and just kind of soak this all in. We got the Bills sitting at 6-6, kind of throwing their fists in the air. They're kind of on the outside looking into the playoff hunt. The Miami Dolphins sit at 9-3. What is it? 4 of the last 5 games at home. They are also undefeated at home. They are the only team in the AFC that is undefeated at this point, man. It's a great time to be a fan of the Miami Dolphins.
It really is. And one thing I had to make sure I threw out there was Tua Tagovailoa was absolutely insane, right? On third down, I think he went 8 of 10. Pro Football Focus has 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, perfect 158.3 passer rating. So, he doesn't have the strongest arm, but when he needed to be clutch, he made some damn big throws. So I had to make sure I shout that out there. But to your point, Jake, I mean, 9-3 right now. You mentioned the Bills are they're fighting for their playoff lives, right? I did get a little queasy seeing Adam Beasley tweet out how, depending on how things fall, the Dolphins would need to beat the Bills in order to not play them in the playoffs, because I would not want to play the Bills back to back, right? I mean, good Lord, please. I'd much rather not see the Bills in there. But, dude, you got to feel really good if you're a Dolphins fan. I mean, we got the Titans on Monday Night Football, followed by the Jets, the Cowboys on Christmas Eve. That's going to be a tough matchup, but you might beat the Titans. I mean, there's a very good chance they can beat the Titans. Then you beat the Jets, and then you just got to beat one of the Cowboys, Ravens, and Bills game to, potentially lock up the AFC. Well, you probably would lock up the AFC East, and then maybe even a home field advantage for some of that. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where this all unfolds. I think as of now, when we're recording this, the Dolphins are the number 1 seed. So we're king shit right now, and no one can tell us any different.
And with that, Josh, too, there's some I wouldn't say breaking news, but you wrote about on the Finsider today that the Titans might be without a couple players.
Yeah, well, let's just clear. No, but I want to clear one thing up. Adam Schefter reported that Derrick Henry was in concussion protocol. We all saw the hit. He looked like he had his lights, his bell rung. He is not in concussion protocol, according to Mike Vrabel. So, Adam Schefter, you fooled me, man. Made sure I went and updated that article because I don't want to spread fake news. But Jeffrey Simmons is out of this game, and as we all know, he's one of the best defensive players in all of football. The Dolphins have been so good at running the ball. Obviously, without Jeffrey Simmons there, it will be a game changer. But he is out, and that was according to Ian Rappaport, which I have always preferred Ian Rappaport, but after being hoodwinked now by Adam Schefter and Merrick told me to write the article, so hoodwinked by both of them. But Jeffrey Simmons is out, and that will be an absolute difference maker.
13-point favorites right now. Does that seem about right for the Dolphins on Monday Night Football? And have they worn the throwbacks just once so far? I think just once, right?
I think so. They're wearing them against the Cowboys. I know. I saw that. I'm pretty sure we got to do something though. What if the Titans win? I don't even know why I'm speaking this into existence, but at some point, I was going to make a bet that we'd have to drink that Will Levis coffee with the mayo if the Titans win, but I don't even want to make that bet. I don't even want to speak that into existence. I already did. Delete. I'm deleting this. I'm not even going to use this, Jake.
None of this exists. Yeah, I think I like the 13-point spread as of right now. Do you think Javon Holland's going to be someone who's out too long, or could you see him being back this week?
Yeah, I think he'll be back this week. I mean, that's just me going based off of absolutely nothing. But the injury report did say knees, right? So maybe they view this game against Titans as one where they can sit him out. But if you're Javon Holland, you want to get back out there, and I mean, you want to be out there for these last 5 games. I mean, it's gonna change everything, right, man? I can't wait. This is awesome.
You can't say based on nothing and cite the injury report. You nailed that. I might be.
And I think there's 4 games. I think there's 4 games. I said 5.
What do you mean?
Left in the season, right? We got Titans, Jets, Cowboys, Ravens. Oh, there's 5 games. Delete that. Never mind.
No, we're leaving all. This is the end of the show, man. This is everyone can get the backstage view of the Joshua House experience.
Yeah, kids asked me for chocolate milk.
Have it any other
earlier. Way. No,
would not have it any other way.
We're this way, and they're 9-3, so you can thank us for that.
It's our vibes that are really pushing them forward. I'm trying to think if I had any other notes here. God, man, if the Jags lose on Monday Night Football, they have such an easy. Why aren't the Dolphins in the AFC South? I'm going to yell this at the top of my lungs till the end of existence. If the Dolphins were in the AFC South for the last 15 years, Ryan Tannehill would probably be in the Hall of Fame. I'm even going to throw that out there.
Oh, man. Didn't they have a choice? Like, I thought they had a choice at one point. I mean, this goes way back. I don't know how. Because Yeah, because the Colts were also in the AFC East at one point. I think
Yep.
when they moved over to the South, I think they might have had a choice, and the Dolphins were like, the divisions are all messed up. But yeah, man, we would have been hanging so many banners that weren't, free agency banners that we, signed Mike Wallace to a big contract. We would have had real banners to hang.
I'm so happy video wasn't around then, because we'd hear some like Don Shula being like, yeah, we don't want to be with the schmuck or like, we'll deal with the schmuck Patriots. We'll kick their ass for another 25 years. Something along those
I don't
lines.
think
I'm
it was
sure
wrong
that's how
until
that
they started cheating. Yeah, until they started cheating, then it all went downhill.
Dude, it's so great to have Devon Achane back. It's so great to see this offense really figuring things out. I still would love to see a third wide receiver get into the action, but I mean, when you have Devon Achane taking those 4 targets, we saw Jaelan Hill catch 2 balls for 23 yards. So overall, man, this is a Miami Dolphins offense that is looking great. We've been asking for it for a couple of weeks now. That just perfect, just complete performance where there's nothing left out on the table. Tyreek Hill, Tua Tagovailoa, and the offense made sure of that. But that is it. That is all the time we have today on this Victory Monday. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of another Dolphins podcast. We'll be back later this week. Merrick will be joining us to get us through the midweek hump and get ready for Monday Night Football against the Tennessee Titans. We will talk to you soon. But until then, fins up.
Fins up.